Hey sports fans, back at it again, and this time we're here to talk about the 10 things you didn't know about Coach Ed Orgeron. Aside from being the face of LSU football, this coach has quite the lifestyle and life story. But before we get into all that, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, so you can stay up to date on all of our content. All done? Great. Let's go. Number 10, Ed Orgeron has a Cajun nickname. They love them some Ed Orgeron in Louisiana. So much so, in fact, that the LSU head coach is often called by his very Cajun nickname, Bebe, pronounced Bebe. Orgeron, who's from La Rose, Louisiana, located deep in the state's Bayou region, has had this nickname since he was young, and many have wondered just where he got the name from. Some say it's because he was born in the Bayou and it stands for the region Orgeron was born, while some have gone to say that it's because the head coach has so many kids or babies. The fact is, the name does come from the word baby, is French for the word, as Orgeron was given his popular nickname from his father for being the youngest of the clan, at the time at least. Orgeron ended up having a younger sibling. Ed Sr. was also nicknamed Bebe. Number 9, his history of violence. Orgeron was once arrested for headbutting the manager of a bar in Baton Rouge. In the summer of 1992, a very belligerent Orgeron, who was the defensive line coach at the University of Miami at the time, got into an altercation with the manager of a local bar, and after the dispute got a little heated, Orgeron assaulted the manager and ended up getting arrested. Miami then placed him on athletic department probation. He was officially charged with simple battery, misrepresentation during booking, and failure to leave the premises. The charges were eventually dropped, but cops claimed that the coach was highly intoxicated at the time of his arrest and that the bar fight was actually a bar brawl. Oh yeah, this wasn't his first bar fight. Back in '84, he was charged with battery after a bar fight at Nacogdoches. 1991 and 1992 was a bad stretch for Orgeron, who also had a restraining order placed on him for repeated violence against a Dade County woman. Yikes! Orgeron was known for having a wild past and to have been something of a knothead on and off the sideline, but by all admissions of Orgeron's current state, the head coach no longer drinks and he saves his fiery attitude for the sideline. Number 8, he played himself in The Blind Side. Ed Orgeron, as well as several other famous coaches, appeared in the 2009 Academy Award-nominated film, and while many of the other coaches had brief cameos, it was Ed Orgeron who got the most screen time and dialogue in the film with Sandra Bullock. In the scene, Orgeron recruits Michael Orr and tries to sell him on life in Mississippi and playing for Ole Miss. Orgeron did such a good job that after the film, his popularity and credibility as a recruiter skyrocketed. Years down the road, when he was recruiting Joe Burrow, a similar scene played out where Orgeron, like his portrayal in the film, tried to sell the quarterback on the amazing food the South has to offer. Number 7, Ed Orgeron coached The Rock. From playing himself in a Hollywood movie to coaching one of Hollywood's brightest superstars during the late 1980s and early 90s, while serving as defensive line coach for the University of Miami, Ed Orgeron coached The Rock, better known as Dwayne Johnson, but referred to by Ed Orgeron as Dewey. Well, Dewey, or Dwayne's name with Orgeron, wasn't lost on him. The Rock attributes his toughness to his time with Orgeron, who was the defensive line coach during his time at the U. The Rock also said he wouldn't be where he is today if it wasn't for the lessons he had learned from his defensive lineman coach. Orgeron recalls his time with The Rock and said that he had a tremendous get-off. He was strong, he could use his hands. Orgeron also remembered The Rock as being tough as nails, and he could have been named an All-American. If it weren't for The Rock shredding his shoulder in practice one day, Orgeron might have been right. Orgeron ended up replacing The Rock with an oversized tight end who would convert to the defensive line. That player was Warren Sapp. Number 6, Orgeron once ripped off his shirt and challenged players to a wrestling match. Reportedly, during Orgeron's first meeting with Ole Miss in 2005, he left one hell of a first impression. As the story goes, the fiery coach was his normal fiery self in the meeting, and to demonstrate his love for the game and the intensity he brings to the table, he ripped off his shirt and challenged some of the Rebels players to a wrestling match. One of the players anonymously spoke up about it and had to say this: It was the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, we had plenty of guys on that team from some really bad places. Another situation and some guy like that taking his shirt off and talking shit to those players, he would have been jumped or shot or both. I still can't figure out if he knew that no one would try and fight their new head coach. He was such an asshole. No players took him up on the offer, and it's just another antidote of a long list of them that speaks on the good and bad of this no-nonsense coach. Number 5. Ed Orgeron tried to fight reporter Stephen Godfrey. The reporter in question to this day still has no idea what he did to get Orgeron to shout at him while threatening to beat him up, or why it took 3 men to restrain the coach, but while being restrained, Orgeron claimed, "We're not going to let this program be sabotaged." When Orgeron was told that Godfrey was a reporter, the coach continued to shout and curse. Godfrey escaped without any physical harm, but also without his interview. Number 4. Before LSU, Orgeron has only had 2 coaching jobs that lasted 5 consecutive years or longer. Orgeron has had many coaching jobs, but the many coaching jobs have not resulted in a long tenure for the coach. Orgeron has moved around quite a bit in his coaching career, but has always landed back on his feet no matter how curiously the coaching job may have ended. Now at LSU, in what is his best situation, the question looms if Orgeron has finally found his fit, or if the occasional misfit will find himself out of a job sometime soon. History aside, it's hard to see Orgeron finding a better situation than this, especially coming off of a national title as a head coach. But then again, when it comes to someone as volatile as Ed, you never know. Number 3. Orgeron cost his team a win during a lightning delay. Coach Orgeron is known for making his players as tough and conditioned as possible by any means necessary. Fitness is such a big part of his motto that he frequently works out with players on field doing push-ups and sit-ups. Well, one day, he took his motto a little too far. When Ole Miss played Wake Forest in 2006, the game was stopped for a lightning delay. Orgeron put the Rebels through a full contact scrimmage, exhausting the team. When they resumed, Wake Forest ran the ball 53 of 58 plays and beat the worn-out Rebels 27-3. Could you imagine your coach running you into the ground during a game delay while the other team is likely saving their energy? Orgeron could, and it likely cost his team the game. Number 2. Ed Orgeron has a serious Red Bull obsession. His Red Bull obsession reportedly started after he quit drinking alcohol and during his days at Ole Miss. He was known for downing multiple Red Bulls in a row and acting erratically, whether it was firing up players or fellow staff. An offensive line coach at LSU recalled a time where Orgeron ripped his shirt off and then shotgunned 2 Red Bulls to fire up everyone before a big game. Orgeron said that he drinks 8 to 10 of the energy drinks a day, saying that if we're going to do something at LSU, we're going to do it full speed. Orgeron is also said to have a Red Bull fridge that's kept stocked at all times. And number 1, Orgeron isn't the same wild coach he was during his Ole Miss days. At Ole Miss, Orgeron had many things said about him, but almost none of them spoke of his ability as a coach. His 10-25 record was abysmal at best, and before his time was over with the Rebels, players in the organization itself had soured on him. A reporter by the name of Steve Godry, too, that we mentioned earlier. But that was the past, and Orgeron has made strides in his relations with players and staff. While still the fiery coach, he's no longer challenging his players to fights. Now Orgeron is challenging them to be great as they can be. Orgeron has reformed the narrative of him as just a wild coach, good at recruiting, and has become one of the best coaches with one of the strongest programs in all of college athletics. That's it for our list. Orgeron is quite the coach, quite the story, and if there's any more interesting coaches than Orgeron, I dare you to find them. Just don't tell Orgeron so he doesn't rip off any items of clothing and slug a couple of Red Bulls and come looking for you. Let us know what you thought about this list and if there's anything that we missed. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, sports fans, we'll see ya.